My name is Steve Fletcher. I work at the University of Portsmouth, where I coordinate the university's research around sustainability and the environment. I'm also the chair of the Portsmouth Climate Action Board. One of the interesting things about Portsmouth, in my opinion, is that it's very much at the front line of climate issues in the United Kingdom. It's on the south coast of the UK, which is a coast that is sinking slightly as a result of some legacy of the last ice age. And as you all know, sea levels are rising. So in Portsmouth, we have a situation in which we have very rapid or comparatively rapid sea level rise. And we have a very low-lying city that is an island and which is pretty vulnerable to sea level rise. Our new coastal defences will play a part in responding to that, but the reality is we don't know how climate change will affect ocean conditions over the next 100 years or so. We do know that climate predictions are that the weather will become more extreme, there'll be increased storminess, and there is a risk that whatever coastal protection measures we put in place, they may not be enough to protect the city against some extreme flood events. So as a city, we need to be resilient and we need to build in climate action to everything that we do going forward. So part of that is thinking about where our climate risk is. So how would we cope with extreme heat? How would we cope with disturbed supply chains? How would we cope with food security, perhaps in either of those situations? Is our economy set up in such a way to be resilient to those sorts of risks that climate change might pose for us? And many of those questions we don't know the answer to at the moment. Responding to climate change isn't all problematic. It presents quite a lot of interesting opportunities for us here in this city. We could think about how we use energy, we could think about how we use transport. And both of those things would result in lower bills and a fitter population. We could look at greening the city substantially, so planting trees, looking at how we can restore our coastal environments and our coastal habitats. So restoring the Solent seagrass or kelp forests, for instance, would all help absorb carbon whilst enriching our local environment. By rethinking our public transport options, we could have faster local transport, we'd have cheaper transport, and transport that has a much lower environmental footprint. We could look at food that's grown more locally, which reduces its carbon footprint, it will be healthier, and also we bring younger generations into that food supply chain. So maybe working with schools to develop more school or community gardens, maybe looking at more rooftop gardens, but really thinking about how we can begin to green this city in a way that really makes a difference to the carbon emissions that we generate as a community. We could also begin to see climate change as a possible opportunity for the city. So we know that employment is a problem in the city. We could look to foster investment in green technology, in green jobs, in essence, and really place that at the heart of our economy over the next 15 to 20 years. So there are ways in which we shouldn't see climate change as simply a terrible problem that we have to deal with, but a series of opportunities. And if we see those opportunities clearly, we can begin to see climate change as something that will support the positive trajectory and positive development of the city. Warmer homes, cheaper bills, a greener city, and more productive green economy jobs. So there's a lot of opportunity that the climate issue brings to a city like ours. In effect, what I'm suggesting is that we bring what, in a sense, is the biggest challenge we face as a city, given our geography, and turn that into a positive, turn that into something we can place at the heart of the city's identity as we move into the next couple of decades. So some of you, or maybe all of you, may not know what the Portsmouth Climate Action Board does. It's essentially a group of organisations from across the city who are committed to encouraging climate action within the city. So what the Climate Board is trying to do is build climate literacy amongst residents and citizens of the city, to work with businesses to look at how they can change their actions in ways that reduce their carbon footprint and reduce their impact on Portsmouth's environment. And also working with some of the biggest employers to think about how they can influence and work with their own employees to make changes in how those businesses and organisations operate. So from some of the work that we've done already, we're aware that people who live and work in Portsmouth are already committed to taking action around climate change. In a survey that was undertaken just before Christmas, we found that 70% of people in Portsmouth are really keen to take personal action to tackle climate change. But of that 70% don't know what to do. So there's a real lack of information and lack of personal understanding amongst some of the community and what they can actually do to make a difference. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of support to take meaningful action to tackle climate change in and around our city. So my final comment to you would be that we have an opportunity as a city and we have a choice. Our choice is to showcase what's possible for a city like Portsmouth, to really transition to a more sustainable future where we're resilient to climate change. We have green jobs, we have a healthier population and cleaner air. And all of these are benefits that we derive from tackling climate change, which ultimately is one of the most significant challenges, not just we face in Portsmouth, but the world faces.